Wanneer je bij dat de kat Johan atlein kunnen cheese which vroeg je haiti. Ja, je gi it. Dag dushu je gi anach dag tu sa. Ja, je dat pa wasach tu je ge wuching hasati. Ja, ha je getangi dat. Tek de hino ek heb ne je het de ha je sapa. Just Johan aya ha je getangi dat. Yen yi nak, yen gach yi nak. Ja, Johan se ha in gisiti. Ach tu je dat. Ja, dacht nach ja, ha chuch ha je ti. Sweden, na dachea hat has kuatin. Ja, tu je ke. Gwash isa ku, ja, ach ish de ta samich sati. Ja, has tu toa sa ku dat jach sa kakus ti. Samich sati. Chwasa ku, we je chatangi sami. Chwasa ku ko ashingit. Chae gugengi a chwasa ku. Ay hakil pa ololo Hawaii. Ach tu as a good to yuchten chasa ku ha samin so. Gonna chish wichin yejini yag. Ach tu as a good kunachwe as a gu cake akach sagu yag yegi yiji yes. Ach chawe shukwa ach tu as a gu yuch akwatan shengit khainach. Has ayachwa ich we takje adu sadui au shatu was wichin chaguch sati yag. Shukwaach tuasagu yin hasakawane gu dachsawe haskawa naksawe yakhe hasyati. Bilchi shuhan. So we'll get started. I wanted folks to know what was going on tonight. So and khatuwane and hauwane.
A few more. I see them all the time. My parents are good to see
Hashagach dahik. Hashagach dahik.
I like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you did. The couch. The couch.
Oh. That hard.
Oh, no, the paper is
My coworker covered the rally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm thinking maybe.
Yeah. Okay. While folks are getting settled, I'll just let you folks online know what's going on. We decided at the last minute to have a Super Smash class like we did a year. Did we just stop doing that this year? I guess, I don't know. So last year, or maybe last semester, was it last?
Go on.
Oh, a long time ago, we used to sometimes bring all of the Lingi classes together, just so we can all just hang out and be Lingi learners together. So I went and talked to JS, like, let's do that tonight, like right now, in 5 minutes. And so thanks for being flexible. And while you folks are getting settled, we want you to be comfortable, we want you to be okay. I know that the room got suddenly very small. But we have some guests who are visiting with us. And I thought I'd give them a chance to say hi and introduce yourselves. If you sit here, then folks can see.
Yep. Hello. My name is Niklas, and this is Anna. We working with a TV documentary about the first expedition with Sami people who gets to Alaska to take the reindeer to take the reindeer business and the reindeer herding up here. And then these people mixed up in some way, and some of them get down to Seattle, and some of them ended up in Charlotte in North Carolina, and one is here more or less. And we find this person, and we thought this is a wonderful man and with a beautiful language. We have to film him and his classes. Yeah. So we do a documentary about this, and so half of the party will be here in the States and in the Alaska area and in this what we call this
Kayaaní.
Kayaaní, yeah. And the next part will be that we do the same thing, see each other in Norway and Sweden, and absolutely the Sápmi area which are the Sami area in northern Norway. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. Yeah.
I'm filming, you're filming.
Yeah.
And if you really don't want to be on camera, just let me know. I will focus on you, but I will go around the pictures. But if you're uncomfortable, just tell me.
Just put a finger up, I don't want to, so it's not a problem for us. Thank you very much for being here.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep. Rakiwe aya aktawasagu. Inaya Kayaaní. Gudachsawe aksai. Chachak. Funachtagu a. Yewe aktawasagu singit yakungea yi ahi. Eltekat yuhan. Chawasa kia akawe singit shihil tu. Kekwak ekonach. Wasa atachta shi shekhe tlaya yiji eoti. Eltekat yuhan. Qonachu yidu asak aya qonachu. Ach wutien aya. Nich yanakut yel. Ausatin de ki ke akawa kochi at. Ye owa adati tu watank. Da sakshawe da sachasatin. Ya Héen chukach aya. Ya dachte sego at ausatin. Aka awe ye ki deo dekin. Ausatin aya yai. Yai aya yao pe akawa. Akawa ketch. Konachoe de toasagu awacha. Igwashi saku we yai. Yao awacha. Konachoe ayash. Yata yachawe ache. Kinde awe uwachak. Yes de tuchwis le chish. A yekdeo dekini. Achwe we yai konea atlen atawacha. Ya yekdeo ziki. Ja, yektawe ye wutien yes. Shta au shaqen. Nesh kwashkiwe. Nesh kwashkiwe yang. Ya chashta katwe yao we yai awachai. A yektawa kausaka. Chashta katat awacha we yes. Yao acha. Acha. Wanani sawe jakutye de du tuasagu koa. A joy shoot out the uck. Ya yikt. A cut away. Out the tus. Way yao. Would do the tussy yao. Tachanach to kayak. A kawe out satin. Ya tai. Konea ya wusha. AIDS. Wait, that's our ha. Akas the cut do you got the ausatin. Ha! Wait, that's a konea waha. Jutlay aya a teerti our chai. Yai our jack. De key ewuti. Ye away do to choose the cheese, Shisdina Dahuguti. Out the dick. Yes, ha, Goneke wik. Yak each de nachsahaj. Yak each de nachsahaj. Yak each was a hashwaya. Ya, that away. A ducky our kutzity. Yes, our ach. A ducky kayak. A ka away. Goneke away. Atuski kakanachangahashi. Atuski kakanachangahashi. Where adatki. Nay, stay has to a guk. Has to ish ka has to tau chihi. Yes, the cut way ku. If they has to has to jishagunity. Has aus the teen way ya. Has to our ach. Atuski kakanachangahashi. Was we Kita playing a couch a was we yai. A cow akawe a yik de hours kaini. Chuteko a tuka ye would we woos. Yes, it was a good duck with the clean. Castle to ask a co out to steeny. Yai she yika yai tie, it's the cut to die with you. It was a good dasak show ko. Was cha good drone. Se katwe ko has to ya with the thing. A kinde at with that ko chute aya kinde the cleaning. The cat connect away. At yauza. Yes, a duck with the clean. Connect away to die with teen ko ya tie ka ya she. Has Christine. Where ko has out the team. Connect has away. Kinde not the clean, kinde not the clean, kinde the clean yet. Connect kinde, they keep a wuti. Connect has away. Huyach not the clean, huyach not the clean. Huyach with the clean. On a day away, Jakat. Kinde naya, yen schutzene, we 18 stau de ooze. A kochte with the good. Koch with the good, dear way out sateen, the cut with who. Hasakawahash, the cutway yai. Hasawe heos. Ha. Okay. Ye chakage yai. Has got take hot yakawusu. Yahayet gasero. Eh. Sekudzi. Ye achage a yikt. At ye achage a yikt. Kashdasa take. Yes, ha. What a yikt away at ye ach. Has got take. A yiktach again, ye ach. Atuski kakanachangahashi. Was like Keske a yiktach ye achye. We ya yiktach atuski kakanachangahashi. Hotuach. Yes, ha. Take the hin hoach. Chakut ku has a word a yan musahashi yai. Hasawaha. Haskautik ita it. Eka ke? Eka. The cut has to jishagunia ya nechte haskauji. Aka yes. The cut way yai awaha. A tie, a dugu, a glee. Just a hockey, aya uyech. Ya yidat yai kat, you do a saw. Punnahu kat. A kach aya. Yai hockey, puts it eka. Yeah, we're going to cheese a heti sa achi. Cheese. Okay. So I want you guys to hear something, and I want to thank you for being flexible. We used to do like super smash classes now and then, and I thought it'd be fun to do one today. And then since we did it, I thought I should tell you a story. And what was the story that I told? Yes, the story about my name.
Heard something about a whale, I thought.
There was a whale,
You talked about how.
Yeah.
Raven and the whale.
Yeah.
Yes,
I heard like big knife.
yes, big knife.
You had an interesting addition to Kayaaní.
Yes,
Very interesting. I didn't know drones were back then. Cool.
maybe it was, maybe it was. Okay, so here's the retelling in English. I thought I'd tell you folks a story. And the story is about where the name Héen comes from. Some people say, what's your name mean? And I said, well, it's related to this old story. If I'm feeling cheeky, I'll say, blow it out your blowhole. I think it's a decoy. It's a raven decoy. That's what I usually go with. So there's a place called Punnahu. In beginning Tlingit, does anybody know of a place called Punnahu? And it's okay if you don't. For advanced Tlingit, does anybody, or intermediate Tlingit? It's Dry Bay. Yeah, away. So Dry Bay is called Punnahu. Everybody say Punnahu. Punnahu. Punnahu.
Kunnahu. Kunnahu.
So Punnahu means among the Dene people. Punnana is our name for what we call Dene people. Southern Shoshone, Tagish, Tahltan, Casca. So these are people who long time ago spoke the same language as Tlingit people, but that's like rolling it back to time immemorial. So the place called Punnahu, Raven was walking on the beach and he sees something way out to sea spraying out of the water. And he thinks, what is that? So he flies out there and he sees this whale chasing herring, coming up on them like this, his mouth wide open so it could eat him. And Raven thought, I think I could fly into that whale. So when that whale came up and opened its mouth real wide, Raven fell inside of it. If you ever need to know how to say in a whale, it's yai yik. Everybody say yai yik.
Yai yik.
Yai yik.
Yai yik.
Yai yik.
Yai yik.
So that is, which is interesting because you don't go yai tu, you go yik. So yik is a whole bunch of fun things, which we'll talk about some other time. So Raven goes and lands into this whale. He looks around and he thinks, this is like a house. This is like a house. It's like a home. And then these herrings start pouring in. And as the herring are pouring in, just as fast as that whale can eat them, Raven gobbles them up. Eating herring, eating herring, eating herring, eating herring. At some point he thinks, I want it a little different. So he builds a fire inside this whale. I don't really know how. He just did. Shoot out the uck. Everybody say, shoot out the uck.
Shoot out the
Shoot
uck.
out the uck.
Shoot out the uck.
Shoot out the
Shoot
uck.
out the uck.
Shoot out the uck.
Shoot out the
Shoot
uck.
out the uck.
Fine. So then he starts to barbecue these little herrings.
Shoot out a uck.
They're really good. Is my hand up? Is that me? Yes, I have a question. I have a question about this story. Okay. So I don't know how to put my hand down. Is it this? Okay. It's just a high five. Okay. So he's toasting these herring and they're delicious. And then he starts to look around, and because he built a fire, he notices all this whale fat starts melting. And he goes, that looks delicious. So he starts eating all this whale fat. It's melted whale fat. And then he sees all these organs of the whale. He's like, I bet you that's yummy too. So he starts eating that. And when he ate its heart, he killed it. So then he thinks, well, I'll just walk out of here easy. Okay, say, we gotta do this one now. Du tooch with the cheese.
The truth was the teach.
Du tooch with the cheese.
The truth was the teach.
Du tooch with the cheese.
The truth was the teach.
Translate that one. It's the complication.
Ooch for like charcoal.
That would be ooch. But it sounds very close. Have to wait. Okay, now.
They're inside.
He believed it was possible.
Yes, so that means he thought it was possible. He believed it was possible. That he could just walk right out of that whale, no problem. But it was out, it was plugged up because it was dead. So he couldn't walk out of the whale. So he starts to say, he has this thing. Now, Shakshani March Detson called it Shukach, which is, okay, now we gotta say that, okay? They're getting a little hard. Shukach, Shukach, I don't have favorites, but that's probably my favorite Tlingit word. Does anybody know what that word?
This is a pretty wild guess, but is it like? Is it like our like at the base of our ancestors or something like that?
That's a pretty good thought. It's not far from that. So I gotta tell you this, I know I'm in the middle of a story. While I'm in the middle of that story, let me tell you that it's gonna be like this is the donut hole of the donut. So I was working on all these Raven stories. And when I was working on these Raven stories, what does that mean? That means we've got these recordings of people telling Raven stories in Tlingit, master storytellers. Some of them recorded in 1950 and they're 80 years old. Some of them recorded in 1960 and 70 and they're also probably 80 years old. Incredible, high-level Tlingit, very, very complicated stuff. And in order to be able to translate this stuff and to write the Tlingit, I've got a microphone here, I've got a microphone here, I've got headphones on. These two elders who are in their 90s, they've got headphones on, and we could hear each other talk and we can listen to the thing. And then I'm trying to work with them to figure out what we're hearing. So in the story, Raven does a thing where he starts to sing. He does a yelling, singing thing, always with a hortative verb. For those of you who are into grammar, gotta learn the hortative because then the thing will happen. So for example, he says,
You need to explain that.
okay, What is a hortative verb?
May it be that way, or like let
Yeah,
it.
let it be that way, may it be that way, right? So
Kind of
like,
like a supplication.
what's okay?
Supplication or a prayer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? So if you say, let it be, like Paul McCartney and John Lennon and, you know, those guys. Or let's go. Or Prince says, let's go crazy, right? So like the whole let us or let it happen, let it be that way, that's a very powerful construction in Tlingit. For example, how would I translate yeyeti?
Is.
It is that way. It is that way. So the hortative form of that is yenqati. Everybody say yenqati.
Yenqati.
Gain gati.
Yenqati.
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 Let it be that way. Okay? So there's a whole bunch, and you will learn what, if that's all new stuff for you, don't worry. Like you will get there. We got all these things taped on the walls that JA has been putting up. They're talking about all this stuff. We're trying to really put ourselves into the mind of a very complicated and incredible fun language. So we're working on, and Raven does this thing. Here's the hortative verb he uses. He says, Yak'ei de nachlahash. Yak'ei de nachlahash. What was he saying?
Let me out.
Something about let it be cut.
Let me be cut out. Could you write it out for us so we can see it?
Yes, yes. So because maybe we're hearing something a little bit different. So let me share the screen and put the right font. I have a Dr. Pepper's font because I made a shirt that says Dr. Phosphorescent. Because one of our dear colleagues obtained her PhD and her Tlingit name is Ida, which means phosphorescence. So, okay, sorry. I am, okay, Yakei, Leo, De, Nach, Sa, Hash with an H. Yes, a lot like a Nyasahash.
I mean, it's like.
Plot thickens.
I mean, it's like good to go to
It
the
would be
beach.
good for me to be vomited out.
Well, so it would say Yakei something else, but when you have Yakei, that's a little different.
Oh,
Is L like Harry?
No, that's a good guess.
The E at the end of Yake makes it like dependent on another verb.
Close.
So
There is one that does that. What this one does is it turns a verb into an adjective. It's an adjective maker. So Yakei is good. Yakei something, a good something. So Yakei is a nice, fine sand. Yeah, like no rocks. Yeah, like on the Chilkat River.
Yeah, and a beach.
So to a fine sand, let it float. Let it float or drift to a fine sand. So we're working on this story. A part like this, he does this kind of stuff all the time in the stories. And he does one of these things. Shakshani Marge Detson says, there he goes again. Shukachos. And I said, what is that? She's like, that's what he's doing. I was like, okay. I knew the way she answered, I knew that was the answer I was getting. So I was like, okay, let's file it in my mind for something to ask about. So there's this thing I think that happens when you teach and study and speak Tlingit, where you'll hear a word, and then you'll hear it again, then you hear it again, then you hear it again. I was trying to talk to some linguists about it, and they said, no, your ears just tuned into it. I was like, no, it's magical. Reject your common sense answer. So this was an example. So one of the next stories we worked on was a guy named Kayaaní, Frank Italian. Do you folks know who this person is? Kayaaní Nora Marks Downhouse. So that's someone that a lot of us worked with. She was brilliant, beautiful, funny, amazing. And when you learn how to speak Tlingit, she had high expectations for him. So it was not intimidating. It was good. Her mother's father is Kayaaní Frank Italian. We're working on one of his stories. He's telling the story about Raven and the box of daylight. And then he says, like, there it is again, that word. But then they wouldn't tell me anything more about it. So I just started asking everybody, right? Just people would see me on the street, like, tell me about shakachus. And I was flying up to Fairbanks. I ran into David Katz at Dísi, and we were having breakfast. I said, what does this mean to you? Shakachus. He said, that's calling the end back to the beginning. So that's kind of literally what it means. But it means to, apparently for Raven to sing a spiritual song to make something happen. And it's also for a clan to compose or sing a song that we usually call a love song. So here it says, Shukachadiyatki, and then all the Shukachadiyatki start yelling. And it means that their opposites are now required to sing. That is all Shukachut. And so this comes back to this story. Okay, now we go back to the donut. So he says, let it float to a fine sand. So it does. They float up to this fine sand. He could hear these kids outside. So then he starts yelling, Atuski kakanachan kakashi, which I will translate for you because it's too mind-bending. It really means, who could let a person cut above a person? That's kind of what it means. But he's really saying, who could cut a person out of here? But he says it I think he said things in really confusing ways, so people just do what he wants. I'm pretty sure it's how it works. So these children run home to tell their parents. Their parents, all the people from the village come down to the beach with a whole bunch of tools. And then they hear it again. Raven's just yelling inside of this whale. So they cut a hole in it. And then they pull that hole open. And when Raven thinks it's big enough for him to fly through, he doesn't fly through it. He's covered in melted whale fat and in whale blood. And he thinks, I don't want people to see me like this. So he sends out a decoy. And I don't know what it was. That's why I said maybe it was a drone a long time ago. And it goes shooting past the people's faces. And it goes straight up. And as it goes up, it starts to make this sound. And everybody just watched it. And he knew they were watching it. That's when he flew out. But he was covered in whale fat and whale blood, so he couldn't see. And the people saw him flying blindly, so they just started yelling, fly up. So he flies up. And when he was way up there, they said, fly straight. So he flew straight, landed behind a point of land. Behind that point of land, he carefully washed himself in the salt water, got himself all prettied up. Kayaaní yan shwudzini. Everybody say, shwudzini.
Shwudzini. Shwudzini.
Shwudzini.
Shwudzini.
That means to just really get yourself ready. It literally means to prepare yourself. A lot of times they say yan shwudzini. So he gets himself all cleaned up and he comes back. and he sees the people are cutting this whale up. So he says to them, wow, awesome. Did you guys kill this whale? They said, no, it was just our good fortune. The children found it. And he says, did you hear anything inside of it? And they said, no. He said, maybe, did you hear something inside of it? And they said, no. Then he says, I think he says, Keshke ade ayikt qiya achchiya atuske kakanakangahashi. So he says, is there no way that you all heard inside of this whale something say, who could cut a person out of it? And they said, oh yeah, we heard that. And then Raven says, well, I heard one time this village found a whale washed up on the beach and they ate it and everybody died. I said, really? I said, really? He said, truly? He said, truly. So they all packed up their stuff and they went home. And then Raven ate that entire whale. He ate the skin, he ate the meat, he ate the fat, and he left the skeleton. And if you go to Qunahu today, there's an island called Kayaaní, Whale Island, and there's a skeleton of a whale on the island. Okay, so there's about 30 of us in here. I think you should all say, can you all say one thing in Tlingit at least? Just think of something that you might say in Tlingit. And we'll maybe start online and then we'll end up in the room. Okay. You guys online, it's your turn. Just say something. Say that.
Achtu sugu kataya.
Sheesh.
Hmm. Ya que haigudia.
Sheesh. What's Taanáx oyech? One more. Okay. Itikawu. People of the room. Oh, okay.
Duhaka kewa'a.
Yeah, what? Jeez.
Dave, Wan Hata,
How? Roich one.
Chish,
Shu to SuperSmashClass. Kua Tlefasa Chaute.
Okay. Roich one.
Sakwa up, it's chief.
Oh,
English chief.
Mekecha. Jeez.
Kaya. Ye shanach. Ye shanach hasne.
Jeez. Ah.
Pretty.
Mekecha. Jeez, thing.
Kunach to sugu we ink out the gun ya yigi.
Ah, yeah. So, yeah. Ah,
Emma, you cut.
okay.
don't know the phrase for a favorite word, but it's Kayaaní.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Hot yuck a
Goodness, cheese. Okay, huh. Askinachliach. Ah,
Okay, Génie.
oh, cheese. Okay.
Sue, Wasuti.
Yes, den has ours dot. You guys know what that means? Where's the beef? Might be a generational. Oh, long time ago. Anyone else? And you don't have to. I'm not gonna make anybody do anything. It's just nice to hear voices.
Burger King, Takahiti.
Okay, one time we were doing midterms for intermediate Tlingit probably 7-8 years ago. And I don't record the midterms, but I record a lot of classes. This class is recorded in multiple ways, so just hang in there. I do believe this helps everybody, right? But there was a student who they were doing this very serious speech. And it sounded like they were bringing out this, okay, what is this? Everybody say this word and then somebody tell me what it means. At-oo.
At-oo.
Ooh,
At-oo.
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 at
At-oo.
ooh.
How do we translate that?
Is that like plant belongings?
Clan belongings, yep. So, what was I saying? I was gonna just launch into a tertiary story again. So the student is like, they're giving this very serious speech and they're online, right? So I see them on the screen. And then they pull out this paper Burger King hat. And then they had this whole like the Hamburger King, and they brought out the atu and they put my. So funny. And I was like, would you let me record? And they didn't let me record it. So good. It's so hilarious. Okay. Who has a language question? Something you're wondering, something you've been thinking about when it comes to Tlingit.
Oh, I got one. Something that has been talked about before between us. I was thinking about the other day with our other teacher back here, just last night. We're talking about Kanak Ta'adi, and then you got Nas Ta'adi.
Oh.
Aha. Now that is a relation to a place, Ta, right?
Yes.
Now, I wonder if that works the same as saying Nas Adi, because there is the Nas Adi and the Nas Tedi.
Yeah.
Is that Ta referring to the same kind of relational place?
So you can have, okay. So when we end up with 80, right? So this is, and I'm gonna put a hyphen on here. This is very common in Tlingit, right? Qanach teidi, Sate, Shayate, Uskate. Okay, everybody know what that one is? Uskate. This is for a question for advanced Tlingit.
Okay.
I believe in you. It comes, okay, the Uskate, let me write it down.
Like at the foot.
There's a foot in there. So if I were to pull the accordion and stretch this out. That's what I mean.
No, right? So is that really like the thing that's on your toes?
Thing that's on the leg.
Yeah.
Let's,
Okay.
I'll give you the, okay, us and jin are very similar in what way? Then we'll come back to this question.
Thematic prefixes that can often be.
Just on their own, us and jin.
They're extensions of like.
The whole lower part of that limb.
Yes.
So like your elbow and down is jin, and your knee and down is us.
Correct.
It's like jing ka is the inside of the elbow, right?
Jin,
Okay.
jin tak, sorry.
Ka.
Jin cock. Between the hands. X up. Okay.
I thought that gym was hand.
So this is how, okay, we've put it all together. This is how jin and chus are very similar. They both do refer to this part of the arm, like from the elbow to the tip of the finger, and also from the knee to the tip of the toe. That is true. Chus is leg, jin is arm. But when you say them, most people are automatically going to think hand and foot. And that is how they work, because they are hand and foot, but it can also refer to the lower leg. So in this case, lower leg on thing. You don't wear it all the time. That's hint number 2.
Legging.
Hmm?
It's a legging for dancing or climbing trees.
Yes, it is a legging, plus cape. So going back to the question, when you could have, Tlingit will not allow vowels to just run into each other. Like when I was learning Hawaiian, I was like, you guys just blend those vowels together? They're like, yeah. Feel like something is wrong. But that's because Tlingit will not allow that. So when you have, there's a whole bunch of things. Like, so this is a body part, sa, it's right here, oops. Sa'at, sate, right? So it's like this part thing, and necklace, because that's where it goes. So when you get into some of these, if it's okay for me to share.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
So there is a place that is called Taanáx. And so usually what happens is that tone gets stolen. So I always say Taanáx. Taanáx.
Ganach, ganach.
So let's start with ka. On its own, high tone, long vowel, that means pleasant, peaceful, satisfying. That's what ka is. Like you say, shtuqa khatiti, achtuqa diti, ayati. So shtuqa khatiti, I'm grateful. Achtuqa diti, or I think you say tuqa khatiti. I feel good about it. And then you could say qayati, it is pleasant. So that gets us to nach. I think that nach, okay, I don't think there's a good English word for this. So maybe we borrow this from like your guys' area.
Okay.
Maybe, where does the word fjord come from? That's not an English word, right?
It's Norwegian.
Yeah, that's Norwegian.
Is it Norwegian? Okay, so a fjord, I think of it as like a long, narrow bay with steep sides. That is nach. And so when you have something nach in a clan name, there's some kind of long, narrow bay. So ka nach is the pleasant, long, narrow bay. Then you put at on there for a thing, and then you put I on there for the possessive or relational marker, and you end up with qanach adi. If you go, so like a long bay, and then where the bay has a head, right? Like in English, you could say the head of the bay. And we know what we're talking about, right? If I say the head of the bay, what am I saying? If I say, I'll meet you at the head of the bay, where are you gonna go?
Well, I
All
assume
the
it's
way
right.
in.
Everybody at once. Three simultaneous answers.
All the way into the back of it.
Yeah, like all the way in, like where usually there's gonna be some kind of river that's running into it, right? So that's called the head of the bay. And Tlingit, that is called ta. Ta. So there's a bay out here. There's a little lake here called Ak. And there's also a bay over there called Ak. And at the head of the bay is Ak Ta. So you can be at Taanáx Ta, which we would write as two separate words. But if you have a thing that's there, now you're gonna have, now it's like, wait, we smushing them together? Like the SuperSmashClass? Yes. Now they got changed. Taanáx Ta at I. Here's the rule. Two vowels cannot run into each other without changing. That's the rule. And in A vowels, when something runs into an A vowel, it's like, I'll change myself to an E vowel. That's what I will do every time. And I'll show an example where it goes the other direction too. So now you get ga, nach, te, di. So if you have nas, ta, it's very hard to tell whether that would be nas ta or nas te. Because if you had te and adi, you would also have tedi.
Yeah. That's good. Okay.
So what is this?
Sand.
Sand. Somebody say this word. Time to focus on our ejective L's. Everybody say, Ayo.
Hail, hail,
Ayo.
hail.
So a very dangerous thing happens if we have a sandy point. What is the dangerous thing that happens? So this vowel, when it shortens, let me show you what happens when it shortens. So we have this word, dak. We have this word, eo. We have this word, at. And then we have this little suffix, in. What is dak?
Like,
Then we have eo, sand. We have at, a thing. Does anybody in here know what happens when I smush these together?
Lady.
Oh, wait, so we go D, A, so that vowel goes short. So when you get smushing, generally everything gets short and low except for the last thing. That's what Tlingit likes to do. So then we have duck. What happens here?
I noticed that there's like a relation between EI and A when they get squished and unsquished.
So what's gonna happen here? Yes.
It's gonna become an A.
It's gonna become an A, right? So there is this vowel switching back and forth. It happens, it switches, because now Tlingit has these four vowels that each have these four variations, but then Tlingit's like, that's not complicated enough. What if this one becomes that one, and then this other one becomes that one? So yes, they do switch sometimes. It's predictable, but there's a few variations. So then we end up with, we get duck away de. So then we got to get this thing becoming wade. So what's going to happen here? Spell it for me.
O apostrophe A.
W.
The W has to say it. Yeah. Then the rest is it. Why is this? It's not it's just, you gotta be careful how you say
Yeah.
it. Because if you say maybe on Sandy Point, which kind of got to the If you're having a hard time with this apostrophe, this ejective L sound, and if you say which kind of got to the
That's like male penis, right?
yes, the tip of the penis. So you have to be, I'm not trying to scare you into not ever saying these things. But one question led to another question. Step out if you need to take a break. I think we might work through the break if folks are okay with it.
Isn't there like another one with the pinched L where it's like the difference between coho and P?
We went
Spook and shook.
Yeah, so flug and spook. Yes.
I'll mess up your L.
Yeah, so just remember where the apostrophe thing goes to. Okay, any other language things you've been thinking?
Okay, you want me to go again?
Wait,
So if you forget to put the W in there, you're in just as much trouble.
oh, like this? Yes, that's the point.
Keep things balanced.
Part of word.
Roll call the following.
I got another language question. Can you point out Shawan?
Shawan.
Yeah, like Keo Shawan. What the?
What's that?
Is like one, almost like, this is the question I have, because I was looking at Yepa, talking to Louis Shotridge,
Mhm.
and he was referring to the Shukakwan part of the Ganaktedu, the floor. Originally, when people came from the south to Ganapati, they found the people that they call Shukakwan, which is the southern Shoshone, and they had sand on their eyelashes because of it coming up, and they were calling them Keo Shawan Ade.
Shawan?
Yeah, like the edge of their
Oh, because yeah, one is the edge of something, like
edge
Jawan,
of their head.
Shawan, the edge of their head.
It was like sand all over their face, is what they said.
Wow.
Hmm.
Sakutsi. Yeah, but I think it would stay Shawan.
Shawan, right?
Yeah, because a Shawan would sound like
Mountain.
edge of a mountain.
Yeah, Shawan.
Yeah.
But anyways, I just wanted to bring that one up because I know, like I said earlier, Héen want hot dog. It's like you're biting at the banks of the water. But that show. I'm not gonna get this out of my head now. You can make me sound like one of those. Anyway, that's my question.
Other thing, something you want to know? Something you've been wondering about?
So I was wondering how I would combine Shashani and Shakawu Kagu.
So say those again.
I'm pretty sure there should be an ak in front of them. So Shashani,
Like this? Shashan.
yeah, I think that's right. And then Shakawu Kagu.
Shakawu?
Shakawu, W-U. Or I tone U. Kagu.
Google. Like this?
Kagu.
Oh, Kagu. What is Shashani, Shaku, Shakawu?
So the first one, according to the book, is gray hair. And the second two are roots of hair. So how would I combine that to complain
Okay.
that my
So
roots are
there,
gray?
so Shashani literally means old head.
Oh.
Sean, and it has to do with the whale baleen,
Mm,
and that the gray hair looks like the mouth of the whale.
uh-huh.
That's where the Shaw comes
Okay.
from. Uh-huh.
Yeah, because like Sean is
Uh-huh.
like old, like you say, like dude
Yeah.
Sean or whatever. And so Sean on its own is old. So Shakawu and Kaguwu, these have to do with the base of something. So here I think you would end up with you do something like that. Shawuch Yacheti Shakawu Kaguwu. Because now it's the color gray and it's like a little fuzzy baby seagull. So we gotta be careful. We gotta be careful about gray hair and the Kashan or
I
Shawetshan.
actually have a color for that specific one right here.
Oh, which one is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. How do you spell?
Pinched L, high tone, long A, underline pinched X. Yeah.
Hey, geez.
These guys won't show them.
What is the noun for that one?
Something like a little gopher or something.
Oh, really?
Like a little critter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you encounter, let's do a deep dive.
It's like bleached hair. It's kind of what it is. It's
Right.
sort of this grayish, colorless, faded hair.
Okay. So there is some resources that we should all know about. And one of them is this noun database or noun spreadsheet, I guess it is. So it was a database, but I combined it so it could just be a spreadsheet. This is the work of Yit Kuni or Weha, Jeff Lear, and it's the most comprehensive list of nouns, I think, that exists. So if you find some word and you can't, you're trying to find the definition or you want to find some more information about it, it's a good thing to just browse. It's not the most user-friendly resource, but it's comprehensive. So there might be, and you also got to scroll for days with this thing. So we'll go down to the L apostrophe and to see if we got it in. Blonde, gray, grayish blonde, and then referring to blonde or grayish hair with white tips. So like it's a specific, but it's also yahyati. So it's interesting because a lot of colors are nouns, and it's like it's some noun that exists on its own. And this is a case where like the noun is also the color, which is pretty cool. Sheesh.
That was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
So then getting back to her question, she was asking about how to say the roots, right?
Oh, yeah. Because like, and so back to, okay, so if you're looking up something in this spreadsheet, because you also have, you have on the top left, and this is probably really small, so is this says Shenget. So this is more or less alphabetized. It can't, the program can't see whether or not it's underlined. It just doesn't treat those as something different. And that it also doesn't differentiate between high tone and low tone. So there is other software that does that. But then you have the next tab over is TE, translation equivalent. And I don't know whether this next one would be under root or hair. But we'll go look up root and see what we find. So then we go roots of their hair. Shachagu. So sha is a head. Chao is hair. That's why you say shachawu. Because you can also say inichawu and You could say gukikawu and shuyikawu. And then gu is the base of something. So like if we want to sort of see how these different parts are getting put together, we can go find gu and we'll find it. So we go up to the G, double O. And it's a stump. So it's the butt end of a tree or another plant. So your shechawu has a stump. So sometimes when you get a long word like that, when you see the individual parts, and so gu means the bottom end of something. So like all those parts just tend to, Tlingit loves to have a bunch of little parts that just smush together. And I think it's helpful to see how they smash together. And I think it's also helpful to see how they pull apart. So you can just see those individual pieces.
What is the numbers in the dark gray area?
So there's a number of different things about the organizational system there. And I don't know what those systems are. Because I know he does have a set of numbers that refer to what type of thing it is, but I'm not sure about.
So sometimes I have decimals in it, which makes it kind of confusing.
Yeah, because, okay, so there is. So this, I was really excited. So this book came out in 2001. I had been learning Tlingit for about 5 years when this book came out. And I was excited because the dictionary we had was not alphabetized. And there was only English to Tlingit, and it was only organized by categories. So you could see like a dish and a spoon and a fork and a cup were all in the same section. But if you just heard the word gukha and you didn't know what it was, you would just have to flip through the whole book until you ran into gukha. Because there's no Tlingit section. You couldn't go to the G's. This is how it was when I was studying Tlingit. Walked uphill both ways. We had one orange book and one yellow book. But then this book came out and it had it not only alphabetized, but so it had categories and it had it was alphabetized. But it's also written in a new form of writing, which we had two competing writing systems for a while. And in some places we still do. So you would look up a word and, you could figure it out, like that is glade, quati, or quat. But some of them, it gets, so this downward is a long, low vowel. So there's a long, low vowel. And this with the circumflex or the little hat is a long, high vowel. And then if you run into something with an H, I'm sure we'll find. Right there. That's an underline. Zisku kakenai.
Also, the L with the line through it.
Yes. So you have this barred L, which is. Oh, hey, there it is again. Okay. So this does have, if you go up to the main.
What did you say the circumflex was?
A little hat.
Yeah.
Long high.
Oh, I know.
Oh, it's a long high.
Thank you. My internet cut out right when you were saying that.
Question. It's a long high. Yes, sorry. So what he has here is a system of organizing. So this is how things are categorized in this dictionary. And so some of it just helps to sort of have a printed dictionary that can be organized by category. So you don't have to remember what a 7.39 thing is. We have enough stuff to do. Okay. So I thought it would be so much fun to talk about some of the parts in the Tlingit verb. And this is jumping way ahead for some of y'all.
Wait, before you do that,
Yes.
can you do the, Padaseo?
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. So that's a great idea, Chish. So whenever we talk about some of the things in Tlingit, oh, let me kick something. Oh, I think it's okay. When we talk about how Tlingit works, we don't have to be afraid of it. But I think when people get close to speaking Tlingit, sometimes it gets kind of scary. And it's okay. And it's going to be okay. But I think to sort of take a language, like we're going from English to Tlingit, and that's a big deal. Because English as a language, for whatever reason, came here to kill Tlingit. And now we're trying to say, okay, actually, you tried to murder an entire language, but we're going to just speak this language.
We explained it.
Exactly. We pretended to be dead. And one time I went to Fred Moss with my kids. Aksani hiti train day for ko. Cajun winners are ye na kaya. I get you has doing kind just let that, yeah. Cookte ka kwada ku. Testa na say. Cookte kwada ku. Techosatina hit. Sa uni. Hede shachwatan with a ha. Ausatin. Gen hashwita at. That's the that in there. Yeah, dech yeti shawake. Watchman with tusatin. Achoe. Shkau tutle na. It ties all in together. I was at Fred Meyer. I was gonna run in for just 5 minutes. So I told my children, just wait here. I speak to them in Tlingit. So I said exactly like that. Just wait here. I'll be back in less than 5 minutes. I'm just gonna run through and grab something. I come back. I don't see my children in the car. I open the door and they are laying down on the floor. And I said, what are you doing? And my middle daughter said, we saw a cop, so we pretended to be dead. Okay. So some of the things that we like to do is a little breathing exercise. I learned how to talk about breathing from Taanáx, Ruth Demmer. So the first thing is you say, everybody say, Neste.
Stay.
Neste.
Stay.
Naidasa.
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 Kuchte.
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 Naidasa.
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 So literally you're saying, breathe into the home. Breathe it back. So breathing in is into the home, breathing out is breathing it back to where all the air is. But as we do this, we're going to breathe in through our nose, and we're going to hold our breath for seconds and breathe out through our mouths. And as we're breathing in, we're thinking about tuushitsi, shtukatuhi, pisachan, qasanir. What is tuushitsi?
Feeling strong.
Yes. Courage. Yes. What about shtuk atuhi? Oh, that's a hand.
Believe in yourself.
Believe in one's self. What about qisakhan?
Love yourself.
Love of people, love. And qasadneer,
Saving, something to do with saving.
or
Healing.
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 Right, so those are all the things that are coming in. Because you gotta stay confident, you gotta believe in yourself. To speak an indigenous language requires healing, no matter what your background is, no matter how you're connected to the language. And then when you breathe out, and then love, just you gotta love yourself, you gotta love people. Because it's a long, hard journey. But I believe you can obtain our language. You can succeed. So when we breathe out, we're thinking of things that we don't want. So one of the things I was taught was let go of things that don't help. Akulheit katakaujiya nik on. What is akulheit?
It's hate, right?
Shkan. Hate. Which is close.
Evil?
Akulheit is fear. I don't know fear. Ha tikaujiya is hesitation. And it's okay. It's like, I will not demand people to speak, but I'll say, don't hold your breath until the moment passes every time. Nik, sick,
Pain.
pain, yes. And khan,
Anger.
Fire or anger.
Fire.
anger.
Anger.
Khan is fire. Khan is anger. So when we breathe in, we think of all these good things. We breathe out, we think of all these bad things. Okay. So I'll say it, and then breathe in through your nose, hold for a second. I'll say it, breathe out through your mouth. Dakundihin yegartusune. Nete naidasa. Kochte naidasa. Nete naidasa. Kochte naidasa. Nete naidasa. Kochte naidasa. Nete naidasa. Kochte naidasa. Sheesh. So we're gonna just do like a light overview of this stuff. For some of you, this is stuff we've been talking about a little bit. For some of you, this might be new stuff. And it's always gonna be okay. You've got time, got space, and it's like there's a whole logical structure to Shingen, which is really fun. And there's a lot of little switches and moving parts. So when we think about how Shingen works, I like to think about this little graphic right here. So I was at a presentation in New York City probably 6 years ago, and I saw this Haudenosaunee language that had color-coded their whole language. So these types of things are all this color, these types of things are all this color. I sit next to a friend of mine named Joel Isaac, who works in Dena'ina, and he says, I'm gonna do this for Dena'ina. I said, I'm gonna do this for Shingen. And we were excited, because we speak different languages, but our languages have very similar types of things. So there's these things, preverb, an object, thematic, conjugation, a subject classifier, a stem, a suffix, and a postverb. This is most of the things you'll ever encounter in a Tlingit verb. Within each of these things, sometimes you're going to have categories within categories. But it all comes down to like these types of things. So preverb is a word that appears before the verb, but it's linked to it. You cannot remove it without changing the meaning of that verb. These things right here form the prefix. The prefix is where most of the verb happens. So Tlingit is like, let me tell you all of this stuff about this verb. And the verb that comes is in the stem. The stem is usually a single syllable, like good, or hate, or hate, or sha, or ish, or oh my God, khan. Bring it back, bring it back. So all of these things interact in really predictable ways. The tricky part is there's a whole bunch of things that all stack up. So if we're to say, look at that. These are the most common things to know about a Tlingit verb. And there's these little parts in all of these little categories. And these aren't all of the things. There's more things than these things. But I think if you knew what every one of these things were, and you knew how to use them, you could talk. Speaking Tlingit requires putting the language together in interactive ways. It's a journey. You cannot memorize this language. It is just simply not possible. Because it just likes to move so much and respond, like any language, it just moves and responds. So going through, like I like to spend some time with folks and go through these things one at a time. I also made this little graphic a long time ago, which some people hate this thing. They just want this, what? It's fine. Some of them hate it. Some of them don't like or don't want it. Well, what this tries to illustrate is like each of these things, I have several different ways I think about this. Tlingit verbs have these things and they're kind of like a wheel. And sometimes it's like a slot machine where like once that thing locks, it can't be anything else. If it's cherries, it's cherries. If it's coin, it's a coin. If it's qa, it's qa. So I try to illustrate this as a switch to say like you can activate one of these switches and you can zoom way in here and say, oh, there's an object pronoun. So if you were messing around with the object pronoun, you would have khat, ha, I, yi. Sometimes nothing, sometimes Then you would have k or ka. And you could have at, you could have sh, right? So you could change these things, but you can't have more than one. If you're gonna use one, it's gotta be one of this sort of set. Then it gets down here to these other parts of the verb, which we'll get into some of. So going through, these ones are important, and you might recognize.
Inside there.
It's like a little universe. Universe, and then here there's another universe. And it's all in the cat's thing at the end.
The whole point of that was to make them feel insignificant.
Maybe you're the cat. And you have this whole universe on your seat. Brought it back. See how I brought it back to seat?
I do like to say.
Okay.
Or in a box.
So instead, we're not even going to start thinking about what these things, what we call them. But each of these things have meaning, right? So this first one, it could sound like this. Everybody say, place, play,
Clash.
test,
Clash.
test,
Clash.
fish,
Yes.
What do those things usually mean?
Negative.
Negative or not, right? Everybody say, ah,
Klach,
ah.
klach,
What does that thing usually mean? Very. If you've never heard of these before, don't panic. Just be like, oh, klach is very. That is klach. What about, everybody say, punach.
Punach.
kunach,
Punach.
kunach,
Punach.
What is that?
really.
Really? Or real? I- Were we talking about something that was fake earlier? It's Yesha. What was Yesha? People say that. No. Like it was not a real one. Okay, I don't. Okay, but not as a real one. Okay.
So the decoys.
The decoy.
Not a real.
Oh, okay. No, so before we even came to class, we were talking about Yesha something. Yesha Dana. Okay, never mind. I'm getting distracted.
Yeah.
The next one has two ways you can say it. You could say chodach,
Gedach,
chodach,
gedach,
Punach.
or chod,
gut,
chod.
gut,
What does that one usually mean?
Too much.
Too
much,
and chod,
gut,
chod.
gut,
What is that?
return,
That would be chod.
Lost.
Yeah. Lost. Right. So these ones have like this little black bar on either side of it. What that means is you can only have one of them within that spot. You could say kesh chach kunach, and you could say kesh chach kut, but you cannot say kunach kut. I don't think so.
You say more than three?
What's that?
Can you say more than three?
Yeah, you could say kesh chach kunach kane yakanaju. It is really not very starting. Like an engine.
How do you use cut as a preverb, like, is it with state verbs or like? Yeah.
It's usually with motion verbs. So like, I got lost walking around. But you can, okay, becomes a deep metaphorical moment. It's kind of sad, so we'll need something kind of funny. Keishi kakechne konachewe wush chonichsati. Konachewe wush hasaschanin. Taktihinaya de chanduogut. Keishi kechne chande. Ausaku kechne de chuch una. Konach ka klein. Konach haji yes yeji wune. Huayinak. Ausakutsu konachewe a atinech yati. De chuch kechne. De chanduogut. Qoneyu hasqewatan. Yak satini akshat. Kechne konach. Gulchish hati gudi gulchish. Kishi wasayeti. Helwasachatati. Koacha kutchwakik achan. So, some of you might know. Nora Dowenhauer and Bessie Cooley, very close. They worked together, loved each other very much. Bessie Cooley was going to visit Nora Dowenhauer. And this was shortly after Nora's husband died. His name was Richard Dowenhauer. He was a big, important person. He did a lot of amazing stuff for us and for our language. So they started talking. And I noticed how they talked. I was just listening. And so Bessie said, oh, it's good to see you, my older sister. And Nora says, so she says, it's good that you've come. How are you? I'm okay. How about you? So she said, I'm okay, but I have lost my partner. And she said, which is wild because it's a very common way to say I've lost something. But it sounds like I threw it and it's lost now. And that's how she said her husband died. Because we talk very carefully around some of these things. And I just watched their conversation and it was loving and caring because I was curious, how do people comfort each other in the language? Gwashisatin katusha ishani ide katashi ide kakidashi yeo hakusti nishtisat akqishqain yuhakkitan one qanin swakaya udachun nak qaqagut the qadit kanai Aqae yuchatangi, one qanins, ye natish. Aqsanechi, nays. Pastor Chuni kuk. Take the hina wechoach, kechne du ish, kit yanai. Ekasagu, kat yacheti. An aya. Ya ach chuni chedi yiksaati. So I bring this stuff up because Tlingit is a medicine. It's a medicinal language. So sometimes you might see someone who's hurting and you're not just gonna stare at them. You're going to speak. And it might take you a while to get to a point where you can do things, but you can memorize some speeches that I think can help in those situations. And when someone was hurt a long time ago, it was their in-laws that would go into the woods and look for medicines. And usually they would know which ones because it would be the only one that was moving. But then your words will be like a healing balm on the wound of someone who's feeling pain. One time, Willie Marks, it was wild how much Nora changed the Tlingit universe. She saw these recorders, and so she went and got one, and she started carrying around recording everybody. The elders didn't like it. I asked her one time, I said, Basa how shachet, atlen k'u has the chet chai shechiti, chish. So I said, we're so fortunate that you recorded so many people. And she said to me, I wish I never did. I said, why? And she said, because they didn't want me to. And I went against my uncles and I went against my aunties and their wishes. But because I kept doing it, they realized that we needed that. And they started calling me and saying, come record your uncle, come record your aunt. But she loved them so much that she still felt bad about it. But her father, when he was on his deathbed, said, come record me. I want you to record something and to play it at my ku'ik. And so it's in Hatu Naguyis. And in there he said, your joy, yikasaku, it's like skunk cabbage. It's like you've put skunk cabbage on an open wound of mine with your joy, which was wild, like thinking of that stuff as he was dying, what he wanted to share with people while he was gone. But like, you folks are going to become ones who can understand that. And then you're going to become ones who can say that. And then that helps to reconnect these circles. So parts of it is mechanical. What's this word mean? What's this word mean? What's this part? What's this do? What's that do? And it puts it together. But then there's a spiritual side of this, which I think puts the pieces together in your mind. Sakjaye, do you want to share anything?
Sheesh, that was fantastic. I just wanted to share that I had planned a completely different class for my group.
I'm sorry.
But no, this was fantastic because we had just put up on the wall the bits and pieces, the parts of the verb breakdown and stuff. And so all I didn't even explain it, I didn't go through any of it. I just told them to go look at it. And that was it. And they're already hyperventilating and having trouble with breathing and their heads are exploding and all of this. So that was a perfect introduction to that. And then we're also getting ready for our midterm projects. And so some of them have ideas and things that are gurgling around in their heads. And so I had brought a stack of books. And so there's a whole bunch of books here that are done in Tlingit. Many of them, some aren't, some are, some, I'll have to show you one of my favorite ones though. Where is the,
Is it Kuhan?
my second favorite. I sent one up. Who's got it? Somebody's got this one. Red. This is one of my favorites. And so this is done in a cartoon style, right?
Manga?
Manga, yeah, graphic novel that it is, but done with form line. And the only thing that would make it better is if this was in Tlingit, which you guys all could do something similar. But this is my favorite part about it. Go through each page and he's fit each of the different scenes into a section of the form line here, right? And then you get to the end, you flip through all those and you have all these different scenes and you go through the story and you get to the end and each of those shapes in that form line makes a whole nother image. It just blows my mind. I love this so much because there's complexity and there's complexity and then there's complexity. And this is exactly a good metaphor for how our language works.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
So I wanted to just show you guys that one really quick, but feel free to browse through any of the rest of them. This is another really cool one, the Raven House Mouse, because this is one that's done in form line style, but with a very modern story and a very modern little critter. And so that one is done really well too. And again, the only thing that would make it better is if it was done in Tlingit. And so that's why Kuhante is at the top of the list. Somebody's got that one too. Keep going, keep going. There it is. Yeah, so that one is amazing. Star of the show right there. And then there's a couple others that you may not recognize. What, too?
Hello, Hawaii.
I hated math when I was a kid. But once I started doing math in Tlingit, it was just a completely different thing. And so this is a really good idea that I want to emulate here. And this one is in Hawaiian.
Oh, yeah. Hawaiian has a base 4 counting system.
Yeah.
Does anybody know why?
And they only have 12 letters.
We have like hand, foot, maybe.
Well, it has to do with hand.
Because you only have 4 fingers.
Well, if you're counting little fish, you can grab them in between each and you can get them 4 at a time.
Yeah. So, and then in between that, I also put together some cards, some number cards. And so these also have some math symbols and stuff in there. And so these are just different ideas for different games that you guys can play. One of the things we've done a lot of talking about the language and a lot of listening to the language and a lot of reading the language, but we haven't done a lot of practicing and interacting with it. And so I want you guys to think about these games, and there's this verb rummy card game here, and there's crazy questions here, and there's old maid, and there's go fish, and there's all these flashcards, and there's bingo games from the vocabulary, and then there's our little family dolls that we can do all kinds of different kinship and color and stuff like that with, and motivation and all sorts of different things. And so those are all different projects that could be inspiring for you guys to create something. So by the end of the year, I would like you guys to have something that you're proud of that we can share. So that's kind of just all this is. There's one of the folks that was in my class last semester had actually created these, and so she's trying to put together and improve them. They do have the Tlingit and all the different plants and words. They don't all have Tlingit words. I never did find my notes from when we went through these in Glacier Bay.
Right.
I never did find it.
Is that last year?
And then this one is sort of a predecessor to your verb game, I think. But it is, I handed out some flashcards to the folks in my class the other day, and this is the set that they need to be redone, and they need to be redone in different colors, similar to yours. But it's a whole group of noun objects and verbs, action verbs, and some object verbs, and then a group of like family terms and different postpositions. And so theoretically, you should be able to just spread these all out on the table and make sentences with them. And so that's kind of the idea there, is sort of learning how to put the bits together like Legos, sort of Scrabble-ish, right? So this is sort of verb Scrabble.
Like that in poetry.
And then, but they need to be done on different colors so you can tell which parts are which. And then there's, I have a couple other games that I had done. I did Uno with the Tlingit words with it, but this particular deck doesn't match the printouts that I had done, unfortunately. And so I went on eBay and I ordered an authentic antique card deck of Uno, so that maybe those stickers will come in at some point. And then there's, anyway, so the other one is this, recognize this? This is the Tlingit trade game done by Tlingit readers. So Richard, Nora, and Patricia Partnow. Artwork by Carmen Quinto, the Indian Education Program. And so this is a board game that was put together at some point for, the only thing I don't have the cards for it. I've never been able to find them, but I did find the lesson plans for some of it. And so these might be some of them, but I don't think it's all of them. Anyway, and so we kind of need to recreate that idea. And I think this is the group to do it. And then this is one of the other projects I had done. This is just the different communities, the names for the different communities. It's sort of breaking down what their names are. And so, and some of these need to be redone as well with different, better pictures. But to be able to talk about moving around in the town, right? And talking about going from the valley to Douglas to downtown, or some of these out the road places. I think it would be really cool to do a smaller map similar to one of these with all of these place names on it. You guys have all seen the big one up on the wall upstairs, but these are done for each community. And so somewhere this information exists in the vast array of university archives that Tom Thornton had worked on. And there's audio for some of these. This particular one is for Glacier Bay area, but these are all place names. And so we can kind of, I'd like to do something that's sort of just kind of an overview of Juneau area with the different place names on it. So we can talk about coming and going and moving around like that. And then these ones are different kind of thematic posters. And so it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could be something as simple as a poster, just talking about herring, right? And so these are the different types of herring. You can even put a recipe for herring egg salad on there. It would be fantastic as long as we taste it and sample it. This one is for making tana. And so there's just different words and phrases and nouns that went with that. And then these ones are how to make dried fish. These two are in English, but they could be clicketized easily. And so those instructions of some kind of cute little project or something could be written out similar to that, or this one how to make a drum. This one's the numbers. This is the expanded colors. And one of my students on Tuesday kept asking me to write out the sentences we were saying. And so I brought in these sentence cards that we could try to help write out some of those sentence patterns and then try to, work out some different dialogues or something, because that was one of the things that the class said they wanted to work on, was with small groups working on dialogues back and forth. So we could do that and kind of hold up some of the sentences. And anyway, so we have spring break coming. So we won't have class for the next week. And then the week after?
Maybe not.
Maybe
Yeah.
not. Class.
So stay tuned. We do have,
Yeah.
the teachers have to spend some time with some master level speakers.
So we can assign them to work together as groups and maybe work with some of these games and put these things in the lab upstairs so they can still continue to work together. And then when we come back, you guys can have some fabulous presentations to show off your time together, right?
Yeah, like I know Sunny Key took a storyboard and modified it and called it Ishan, changed everything with that. So maybe Kwan needs an Ishan game.
Yeah, you go from Yen Chicago. Go from camp to home.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll be in touch with all of you folks about what the plan is for intermediate Tlingit. Your goal is to do a retranslation of talk. Make sure that you have also translated your 60 sentences. And then we'll get together. Spring break is next week. The week after, we won't have classes. I'll send you details on what's going to happen. You can certainly gather and work together on the talk. But your goal is to retranslate the story and to show that you know how every single thing works that's in the Tlingit side. That's your goal.
Cool.
And we'll go through it together.
Just a reminder for intermediate Tlingit, if you haven't met with me yet, remember you're supposed to meet with me twice during the semester. And I would love to meet with all of you. So that's why I can't shove like 20 appointments in the second half of the semester. I will be answering emails. If you could please reach out and start scheduling a Zoom or in-person meeting with me, I would really appreciate that. Administration.
Okay.
There's a part of these big classes that we used to do that I'd like to add in here. And it was about the thoughts or things that we would like to share with people that are learning.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to share something with you guys. Everybody take a look at each other inside the room. This is who's doing the language right now here that's within the room. There's other people out there. However, these are the people you have in contact with you. Long time ago at one of these big mashups, I said to the people that were coming in new, better learn linguistics because it's gonna really come in handy if you don't get this stuff. And that's what I thought, but I was wrong. Let me tell you something. When you listen to old audios or listen to each other, help each other out, people like my friends here.
Jeez.
This is how I started building up the verb, all those conjugations. You may not remember all that linguistic, but you know what? The more you listen and then you see those charts, it starts going in your head without you thinking about it. it happened to me, I was frustrated, like I can't remember this stuff. But I did, it's starting to really become something in my head that I'm helping other people learn. Maybe I'm not the best at it, but we gotta do the best we can. So, everybody in this room, please understand, you can always ask anybody here, myself, anybody. I asked Kune, I've asked my dear sister here, and maybe sometimes they've asked me. And there's no competition. There's only respect. Ya Akune, that's the number one thing in our culture. And also Husahan,
Yeah, wow.
Grujish.
Okay. So, the last thing, I would say, it's a two team.
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 Translates to go by your own ambition. Don't wait for it to happen. Make it happen. You go ahead, Juan, the cheese.
Cheese.
How?
That was a cool class, man. That was fun. I haven't done.
Oh, yeah, you were gonna show the
Oh, yeah, we
Now,
were,
really quick.
yeah, we were looking at this. This is really interesting. The Will House of the Chilkat Community House of the model based on the 1960 study of George T. Emmons. Now, here's the thing about this. This is like really cool resources. This looks like it was Alaska State Museum put this up. So this is like pop-up that shows inside the whale house. And I want to tell you something about
come up here.
Okay. I want to tell you something about the picture. Okay. You want to do that? I just don't got the big boy pants on right now. Well, all right. And anyway, okay, so I'll show you the inside of this. Let me fold it back up. Well, I'll do is this much. I don't know if you can see this on the screen.
Here's what they're seeing.
Up there.
All right, well, you're not gonna be able to see it too well. But anyways,
You can see it kind of well.
I just want to show something to you guys. You know that history of Hune's name earlier? One of these posts inside the whale house, part of that history of the raven. You can probably barely see it, especially in TV land is what I'm gonna call it. But on this pole, there's a little raven head sticking out of the whale. And that's exactly his name.
There I am.
Yeah. There he is.
So it's so good.
And I want to say, when I look at this, I used to think At'uu, this is our At'uu of the Ganok Teidi. However, we're all connected, all of us here, every human being. In Tlingit world, Tlingit people, his name, these ravens, the strong man, all this is a lot of our history connected to each other. And I could say a lot about this, but we don't have a long time for me to go on forever. But I will say this much. At'u, for me, like this clan house, Yayit, the history of how our clan came to Krakong. This is all clan property. But at one time, we're all a part of this. We all had an ancestor connected at some point. And I don't only mean Tlingit people. I mean all people. Tlingit is, what is it in our language meaning?
Human being.
How many human beings are in here? Now I know where all the aliens are at. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good cheese, Shucha. You can't go away. Cheese. Yes, I can.
Our.
Oh, yeah.